I'm an objects conservator at Cooper Hewitt, which is the Smithsonian Design Museum, where our collection contains examples of every kind of different medium, historic through contemporary design in all different materials. You know, plastics are a big part of the collection. You can't tell the history of modern and contemporary design without plastics. Natural plastic materials were usually coming from plant and animal sources. So animal sources, we're thinking horn, tortoise shell, bone, and ivory. Horn, which can be cattle horn or also hooves from horses, those are much more like everyday accessible materials. But when we think about tortoise shell, bone, and ivory, we're looking at luxury materials. A lot of those luxury materials are very involved in imperialism and the colonial project. So European interest in these luxury materials and the kind of people who were filling their cabinets of curiosities is very, very intertwined with displays of power, wealth, and particularly imperialism. So that's sort of a context in which the scarcity of these particular materials also lends them greater value.
And you might be familiar with some of this story because, hey, it's still happening. We've all heard of animals like elephants and rhinos being poached for their ivory. But ivory was a very big deal during the 19th century, and its scarcity was becoming a problem.
Well, modern societies have a tendency to really overdo it when things become fashionable in terms of harvesting materials from the natural world. Sort of an understatement.
Yep, we're absolutely still doing that too. In the mid-19th century, this was becoming a big problem for one product in particular, billiard balls. And this was news to me, but billiards was a huge deal and big business around this time. So this shortage was such an issue that Phelan & Colander, a major billiard ball manufacturer, offered up a $10,000 reward to whoever could come up with a substitute for ivory.
And that's $10,000 in 19th century money?
Yeah, so over $200,000 today, which, as you might imagine, got quite a few people thinking.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So an inventor named John Wesley Hyatt came up with a pretty good ivory imitation in 1869, celluloid. He never actually got the $10,000 prize, but he did kind of change the entire world.
Celluloid is far from the plastics we know today, and it wasn't a perfect ivory substitute, but it was the spark that started massive innovation in the field of plastics.
So, you know, the traditional sort of cultural history of plastics is that you start with these imitations, and then you move towards substitutes. And then you open the Pandora's box. And now plastics can be engineered to do anything you possibly want them to do. So these sort of substitute magical alchemical transmutations where you're taking plastic and making it imitate these other materials, that's one of the real drivers of experimentation in the plastics field early on.
So plastic began as a substitute for scarce, precious materials that occurred in the natural world. It looked and performed like materials like ivory and tortoise shell. And it made a lot of luxury goods way more accessible to the average person.